An inspiring life story is the account of a moment when an extraordinary person reveals the key that unlocked the door to their success. Among the many themes explored in these narratives are triumphs over adversity and the shattering of previously established boundaries. Not only can you as an individual motivate others to chase their dreams, but you can also provide them with the means they need to keep going strong once they reach their goals. Welcome to Deep Discussions Poetic Expressions Podcast. Thank you, as always, for supporting Deep Discussions' mission to transform adversity into opportunity. I'm always thankful and always want to show before every episode my gratitude for those who continue to support our mission through our learning experiences, our campaigns, our interactions, and even through our podcast. It is our mission to spread love, spread inspiration and influence for those who are experiencing adverse circumstances. Adversity shows up in so many different ways, and it is and has been my calling for years to inspire people to see their adversity as an opportunity to grow and not an obstacle to discourage them. So with that being said, we're going to dive into today's today's topic. And I like to start every topic off with a poem, and then I'll let you know the details of what we're going to be speaking about today. Maybe you can figure it out while I'm reading. This poem is entitled Narratively Speaking. Writers and authors, yet nothing gets written. Stories overflow, but everyone's fiction. Words left hanging, ears thrown destroyed. Egos ballooning, minds being toyed. Talk comes flying, landing with no grace. Tensions climb the walls, emotions start to race. No real need to connect, just crafting illusion. Saying, ask if you want, while drowning in delusion. Readers left blinking, trying to trace the sequence. And when their tales get questioned, the authors take offense. Barely any substance, as if nothing matters. Just rumors and whispers, drama and chatter. No more heart to heart, no meeting of the minds, just doing and blaming, wasting precious time. The energy it drains ain't worth the trail. Stop narrating a story that ain't your tale. I was called and inspired to share with you today the message of write your own story instead of telling others. This is something that I think a lot of us, myself included, can learn from and can try to be better practicers, if that's a word, of when it comes to, telling about other people. Remember when we were younger, we were told, stop tattletaling, stop telling on your sister, stop telling on your brother, stop telling on your friend, whatever the case may be. But we live in this narrative-driven society that being told that holds no relevance today. People always want to create narratives of others where it's gotten to a point where people feel the need to recorrect their narratives, rebuild their image and all this other stuff because, society has been trained and conditioned to try and amplify their platforms or their image by destroying and bringing down others, by creating and, assuming these narratives on other people. I felt called to do this because, again, this is no direct interaction of my own. I have been in these situations before where either I form narratives of people, people form narratives of me, but now I'm witness to one or have been a witness to one. And I've witnessed it from both angles. I've witnessed it from the person who felt the need to try to recorrect their image because they thought that or felt that someone was painting them in a negative image. I've also seen it where the person was the one creating or crafting this narrative of someone without, valid or concrete substance. And people do this for one or two reasons. They do it because, well, actually one of three reasons. They do it, one, because they are so uncomfortable with someone that they want to try to build an army to have by their side or to protect them from this one person. They are intimidated by that person. It could also be that someone has painted them in a negative light, so they felt the need to do it back, or they done something to them that they didn't appreciate and they felt was like, oh, it was so bad how they treated me that how could anybody like this person? Like, and they try to convince, again, everyone to think the same way of this person that they think. But another reason that kind of like just sort of crossed my mind as I was thinking about why people create narratives of other people, it's because of jealousy. So the first one was intimidation. The second one was hurt. And the third one is jealousy. Jealousy and hurt can sometimes go hand in hand, but jealousy is a little bit stronger, obviously, than hurt. So let me speak a little bit on the jealousy part. Jealousy is something that I've seen a lot of when it comes to the crafting the narrative thing, because jealousy can show up in not wanting someone to, stand out more than you. It could come from, wanting to be, more liked by people than someone else is, or liked at the same kind of, volume or level as someone. Like, there's so many different facets that happens with this whole narrative thing. And this is something that we hear in media, we hear in, our day-to-day, we hear at work, we hear all over the place about narratives. And I remember talking about, or I had a podcast episode a while ago talking about who's your narrator. And when I spoke about that, it was a little bit premature when I shared it, because I had my dealings with it, and I've obviously was exposed to it a lot at that point in time, but I've seen even more now from an indirect level as I've continued to grow more relationships, continue to get more involved in things. And I've watched and seen so many narratives get created and crafted. And the difficult thing about it is, like, it's almost like reading a story. You can't rewrite it because it's not your own. So you're reading these narratives that people are creating and writing about others. Even though you know the truth, you can't rewrite it, one, because you're not the author of either story, and you don't know what that story, meant or how it felt to either party. And two, you just kind of want to keep your own peace. But the problem with that is, when these narratives are being written and the writers of the narratives, sometimes narratives change with new information. And especially if that information is concrete. And what I challenge not only myself, but others to do is, again, get a little more interpersonal with these people and be confident in who you are to get to know who they are. It's tough and challenging in this society, because when you try to get to know people and you ask interpersonal or direct questions, again, people feel attacked. And that's when the narrative gets bigger, because people feel like your questioning of them is you trying to get more ammunition or more, evidence to build either someone else's narrative or your own. So this narrative driven society that we're in can be very not only complex but complicated as well, especially when you're the reader, hearer, or listener of these narratives. Because you, on one hand, you want to be supportive and you want to be there for those that are painting and crafting these narratives, but at the same time, you want to be open and honest too. So where's the balance? Where's the balance as the reader of these narratives, which is kind of where I'm at. But as the people that are the narrators, my advice to you really is it's too much energy that you're exhausting in trying to build and craft someone else's narrative to try to build yourself up. Work on yourself. Work on your own, situations, your own adversities, and your the things that you're dealing with. Because I remember when I was so hurt by a certain situation that didn't go my way. And I remember when, I'm gonna talk about, excuse me, in the workplace, when I was like, really frustrated about what I was dealing with, when I was in this certain job. And I wanted so badly to tell HR and leadership about how this manager that I had was not, was not being nice to me, was mistreating me. And I remember I wrote this like long drawn out email giving all of this evidence of what I felt was, strong enough and compelling enough to explain my argument or my thoughts around this person and how they are and who they are as a human being. I put it out there, shared it with HR, and HR was like, in a very professional way, said, "I'm sorry that you feel that way, but it's best that you go to this person and talk to them about your issues, or there's really nothing we can do." Mind you, HR is supposed to be, it's supposed to have the employees back. Fast forward, after all of this happened, like 3 months later, I was gone from the company and found a new job because, thankfully, and, I thank God for opening another door for me to leave out and walk through a new one to get away from this manager. So I find out at this new job, I find out while at this new job that my previous manager, not only did she have other peers of mine at the time put in, complaints, whatever you want to call them, about her, but she was put on a survey plan where they had to evaluate her effectiveness as a manager. So that goes to show you that although, one, you got to be careful with the people that you're sharing these narratives with, because when you share these quote unquote narratives, they have to come from a place where you actually have concrete evidence that this person has done whatever they did and that they have impacted and affected other people besides just you. Because when narratives are created, a lot of the times they are self-centered. They are, well, they did this to me. They said this about me. They did that about me. And that's where it starts. Then you start finding things that they're doing to other people to try to support why you felt negatively about how they did things to you. Sometimes you don't even have to do that. Sometimes all you have to do is just share with, an unbiased party what you felt, how you felt, what happened. And sometimes the doors will start opening where these people will somehow, even if they may not agree with you, listen to you, or hear you out on the forefront, eventually it's going to open their eyes and catch their attention though. So they may say, oh, it's a one-off. But when things happen 2, 3, 4, 5 times, oh, then it's no longer a one-off. It becomes a situation that they have to handle. So sometimes you don't necessarily have to create a narrative. Just share your story and go from there. And if your story is not supported the way you want it to be supported, it's okay. Another door will open for you. But you don't have to try to use your story and hope that your story demolishes or dismantle or destroy this one person. It can be the start of something that can catch somebody's attention, because we always want to be the hero, but sometimes we don't have to always be the hero, or we don't have to be the person that, you know, did the ultimate task. Sometimes it's okay to be a contributor, because once you contribute your efforts, they'll pay off in the long run in some way, shape, or form. Did I get the recognition, or did I get, you know, contacted by HR saying, hey, you was right, she was this, that, and the third? No. But I tell you one thing, when I found out about all of those things that happened, I'll say the ego side of me did say to myself, I told you so. And I ain't gonna lie, that was probably one of the best feelings that I've had in my career, because as a human being, you always want your feelings, especially when you've dealt with something in a deep way like I did, like over and over again, you want your feelings to be validated. I mean, that's a human thing. Again, especially if it happened at a high volume. Now, if it was a one-time thing and you're looking for your feelings to be validated, you might have some internal things that you need to work on. But if it's something that happened over, you know, several months, years, and people weren't hearing you out at first, but then it finally gets out in the open and other people see it, oh, trust and believe. You're going to feel validated. You're going to feel good about saying something, because, you know, it's a self victory. No, you don't want to hurt people. You don't want to damage other people's reputation. But at the same time, it showed me, at least, that I was a good judge of character. And I guess it's just, you know, instead of worrying about trying to create narratives based on more than just what people did with you, worry about just that. Don't worry about how they dealt with other people. Don't worry about what you've seen them do in other places. If their interactions with you were one thing, that's all you need. You don't need to worry about other people trying to support your argument, because what happens is you get so caught up in trying to get other people's buy-in that your argument loses leverage. Because why aren't you just standing on what you went through? Is your experience not strong enough to support that? I didn't need those other people to step in and tell me or tell other people what I went through. I felt fine and comfortable and confident in what I had experienced and sharing that with people. So if you need to go out and get other people's thoughts, buy-in, opinions on things, you're devaluing your perspective of things by trying, because you almost trying to say, like, it's almost like second guessing yourself, so to speak, especially if it's your own personal experience. If it's how it made you feel, you felt the way you feel. There's no need to keep creating these narratives of people. And sometimes on the other side of the spectrum, it's best to not try to get all these people, or trying to form all of this, find all of this data and all of this supporting evidence, because you want to still give yourself a chance to get to know the person. or to get to know the situation, or to get to learn things about these kind of situations, so that if you run into a similar situation, you know how to navigate it. But if you start leaning on things outside of what you dealt with, you void yourself the opportunity to learn in your own experience. You start relying on other people's opinions, other things that has nothing to do with you. So that's what I mean by write your own narrative, write your own story, not tell others, not tell other people's stories. So that means not tell what other people said to you about this person or this situation, not tell other people's stories based on what that person who you may have a problem with have dealt or did to other people. Just keep it between you and them. And if there's an unbiased party that holds some kind of accountability, that has to, step in and, mediate the situation, then you go to them and say, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. And that's especially if you've tried to approach that person directly and say something to them about how it made you feel. Because if you did that and it wasn't received well, that's furthermore you to them that you can present to the mediator, as opposed to having to seek outside sources. Let the outsiders be the outsiders. That's when the narratives get created, when you don't keep it internal with what you dealt with. Because here's what I will say before I transition to spiritual relief. If you keep it within the four invisible walls of your space and of what you dealt with, it's not a narrative. It's an experience. It's an encounter. It's evidence. We create narratives when we start relying on sources, perspectives, and opinions outside of our own. That's when it becomes a narrative. Write your own story instead of telling others. Now we're going to transition over to 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And it reads, but there were also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. Many will follow their depraved conduct and will bring the way of truth into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with fabricated stories. Oh. Their condemnation has long been hanging over them, and their destruction has not been sleeping. Wow, that was a lot there, but it really speaks to what I was sharing a minute ago. What I pick up from this is there are going to be people outside of your space, outside of your realm, that are going to try to negatively influence your view, your perception, and your perspective of certain people, places, or things. But what this says to me is certain people have certain motives and certain ungodlike intentions that sometimes finds its way into trying to, ruin, disrupt, or corrupt your perception and your view of things. If you feel as though a certain thing or a certain place that God has brought you to, it does not feel the way you expected or you thought God would bring you to, it's best to consult God, not other people. So one thing I will say that I've constantly reminded myself of is, when I'm in a situation that I find myself constantly feeling, unsure about, uncertain about, oh, it's making me feel a certain way, and I don't know if I'm supposed to feel this way. Oh, it's appearing to be, not so optimistic or fulfilling or whatever the case may be, it's best to consult the person that brought you to that situation. Ask him, God, what is this? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be gathering from this situation? And he'll open your eyes and make your eyes wider, not only to the things that he's trying to show you, but even in some cases, it becomes more visible as to why certain things are on the outside of your realm as opposed to the inside. And God not only opens your eyes up to what he's bringing you through, but also what he's keeping you away from. Because we sometimes are easily influenced, distracted, and swayed by things that have no positive influence or, no buy-in to where we are or where we're trying to get to. It just may feel good or sound good in a moment. Kind of like what I was just saying a minute ago. We get caught up in this one specific narrative or opinion we form of a person, place, or a thing. So we start consulting outside sources to support our thoughts, view, or opinion, instead of consulting the word, instead of consulting God who brought us here. So don't get swayed by the flesh, by the things outside of the invisible walls that God has created of your perception, your perception, your perspective, and your spirit. Your spiritual being is one that God has crafted for you to gather the message of what he's trying to show you in your journey. You're on this journey with God, not the person, outside of the four walls that he's created. Thank you, as always, for supporting Deep Discussion's mission to transform adversity into opportunity. If you want to learn more about how you can connect with me and collaborate with me, you can visit my website at deepdiscussion.org. If you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like to host me to present one of my workshops or trainings or one of my programs that I'm in the process of launching, you can contact me at Thrive Forward, THRIV as in Victor, E forward at deepdiscussion.org, or you can call or text me at 443-744-5406. Thank you again, as always. And remember, write your own story instead of telling other people's stories. Stay inquisitive, stay connected to God, and take care.